Hi, welcome back to EducateTube.com. My name is Sipsky, your host. As you know, I haven't been posting videos in the last few weeks, and the reason for that is I was on vacation to Vancouver. I had a great deal for that trip. I actually spent less than $670 Canadian or $500 US, including flight, accommodation, local transportation, and food. Now, that's amazing. I was there for 4 days, 3 nights. So yeah, great deal. But this video actually will be in 3 parts. I'll talk about the equipments that I brought with me. For example, the first part I'll talk about the Fuji XT3, a very compact camera with the kit lens, which is amazing lens by the way. Then the second part I'll talk about the Mini 3 Pro from DJI that I got. Okay, so that'll be next week. I'll talk about that. And lastly, I'll talk about the trip itself, which it was amazing, especially when you're going during nice weather, sunny and around 18 degrees. Okay, Vancouver is just beautiful. Okay, let's get started. I'll talk about this camera here, Fuji XT3. All right, so when I went on Vancouver trip, I brought my camera with me. This is the Fuji XT3. I had my Sony A7R III, but I didn't bring that one. And the reason I bought the Fuji XT3 is because it's compact, very nice looking, as you can see. Look like I'm a tourist, right? And the kit lens is amazing. This is a 18-55 f 2.8 to 4, which is really good for a kit lens. In fact, this is one of the best kit lens ever made, I think, for a APS-C camera. Anyway, so let me give you my experience regarding this camera when I was taking photos. Mainly it's for photos. For videos, I actually use my smartphone. And the reason for that is that this camera doesn't have image stabilization like for video, so it's harder for me to walk around with this camera, so I end up using my smartphone. Actually, I want to share mainly of the photo quality and how it was used. The first thing that I realized was when I was on the plane and I want to take the plane shot, right, as we fly up. I set it to auto, and which was my big mistake, because when it was auto, the camera was trying to adjust outside, so it was kind of dark and it was going pretty fast, so everything will start to blur up. Okay, so I would recommend you do for Fuji XT3, this camera here, set everything to manual, except for maybe the ISO, you can set it to maybe auto. But generally, all of them, whether it's shutter speed, you should try to estimate. I usually set to 1/125 or 1 over the maximum, let's say 500, okay? And depend, of course, on the amount of light coming in and how fast you want to capture the shot. So usually around 1/125th shutter speed is where I set this camera at. The ISO, I would usually set it to auto, but sometimes if I'm in a very dark place where it's very dim or there's not enough light, I usually set it to around 1600 ISO, which can be a little bit noisy, but that's what I would do when I want to capture the image. Okay, so then I would of course set my aperture very wide, f2.8. But then it's going to be a wide angle, because at 18 mils it's f2.8, and at 55 mils it'll be f4. Okay, just be aware of your camera lens, because this is not a constant aperture. This is variable, but it's narrowed, right? So you have between f2.8 to 4, and the zoom is between 18 to 55 mils. Which is a good field of view, okay, 18 to 55 mils. So yeah, this is a great camera in the sense that it does have a very good lens. In fact, the lens has an optical image stabilization in it, okay, so great for photography though, but not for videos, okay, so that's why I mainly use it for photography. Now, I actually took over 2,700 images. Imagine that, that's a lot of pictures, right? I had to bring 3 batteries, so I have 2 with me always, and even that I was running out of batteries. After taking 1,000 shots, 2 battery was barely enough, so thank goodness I brought my battery bank like this one here, 10,000 milliamp hour battery bank, and I just plug it directly to my camera and it was charging the battery as well when I'm not using it. So it was great. So make sure when you have 2 batteries and you're filming all day, you might want to bring another one or maybe even 2 more, okay? If not, bring your battery bank and plug it into the camera, the USB-C, and while you're not taking the picture, it will charge the batteries. So that's what I did, and it works out really well. In fact, that battery bank that I had was able to also charge my smartphone, and also when I was flying my drone, for example, I was able to charge also my batteries as well. Okay, so that's very convenient. Now, regarding the camera itself, I did bring the white balance sheet to make sure the color is balanced properly. Okay, I only used it once, right? When I was outside, I was setting the manual balance. So using a white card, I was able to then set the color that I wanted, and I just left it the way it is all day, and that was it. Okay, just one time, that's it. But I do recommend bringing a piece of standard. This one I got from Rona, and I was able to color balance my camera. Other than that, I really like the feel of this Fujifilm X-T3. It feels like I was a tourist taking pictures, and which I am a tourist when I was in Vancouver, right? But the fact that it has all these buttons give me the motivation actually to take pictures. For some reason, the smartphone can take the picture, but it doesn't feel like I'm doing the job that for the photographer is doing, right? So it has that different feeling. Maybe it's just my personal bias, but I can tell you, having this camera with all these buttons, it feels like you're, and people seeing you taking pictures, well, they feel, wow, this guy knows what he's doing, does he? But anyway, yeah, so this is a really good camera because when you're taking picture and you're able to manipulate all these buttons here, you feel like you can really take a good picture, the sceneries, and compose your shot. Take your time. And this is one thing about this camera is that it's not the fastest camera for autofocus, and it's not the slowest. The battery life is not that great, but it's not the worst, right? So it's somewhere in between. I would say, it doesn't have to be this camera you bring to take pictures when you're on vacation. It could be a decent DSLR camera, any type of, but I would say at least have an APS-C or Micro Four Third sensor, because you do want to capture the evening scene or sometimes even night scene, right? Maybe you want to bring your flash as well. But the problem with the flash, of course, is that it doesn't give you the natural view of what's happening at that time period, right? So for example, evening shot, you want to capture the images, but you don't want to have a flash in there because then it'll be unnatural light that's casting over that image. So ideally, yeah, full sensor is great, right? APS-C camera like Fujifilm X-T3 is somewhere in between. So I would say, yeah, this is great. And of course, if you want to get a lens, make sure you get a wide aperture lens with a decent field of view. For example, 1855, I think it's pretty good for taking street photography and landscape. It's not the widest for 18 mils, but 55 would be good for taking maybe people, like it's portrait shots. So that's okay. I'm more focused on the sceneries, right? I love to take mountain, ocean. That's Vancouver, right? And it is surrounding and any architecture, any unique sculpture that might be there, or animals like trees, plants, anything like that. I really enjoy taking that, and clouds, of course. These are something like I like to do on my own, walk around, take picture, and nobody notice. And to me, I feel really content doing that. And so Fujifilm X-T3, like any other digital camera, I think it's really good. It feels good when you're using it. The only thing is that when I do put everything on auto, it doesn't work as well. So I have to set everything to manual, right? So I like these button here. I can set it to, like for the ISO, I can set it to. Usually, if I do manual for ISO, I would set it to maybe low or 160 ISO or 200 ISO, okay? And that's why I set, especially daytime, right? And when it's darker, I'll set it to maybe 800 to 1600 ISO. I don't think I'll go above 1600 ISO, because once you go above that, it gets quite noisy. Then for the shutter speed, depend on what I'm trying to take a picture of. If it's a fast moving object, obviously I will set it to at least 1/250th of a second. Usually, for example, a bird, it would be like 1/500th of a second, but of course, you're gonna make sure there's gonna be a lot of light. So usually sunny day, 1/500th of a second is great. And by the way, if it's very bright, I don't like to put in the filter, right? So usually what I'll do is I'll set it to, high shutter speed to at least 1/500th of a second, and that will bring a little bit of light in there, and so it doesn't like overexpose the image, okay? Other than that, yeah, so the shutter speed, the ISO I have control over, and then of course the aperture. Now, the thing I like about the Fujifilm X-T3, the lens itself, like you can actually set to manual, okay? And then there's a ring here where you can adjust the aperture, okay, like here. And you can feel the click on it. And then when you're looking at the LCD screen, it'll show you that the aperture is changing. So I love about this manual aperture change, okay? And of course, it has image stabilization for this particular lens there, right? And the zoom 18-55 is more than enough when I'm using it. Now, I didn't bring the flash because, again, I don't like to use artificial light to take pictures, unless, of course, it's like a family photos and, it's okay. But if I'm taking natural scenes, definitely I will avoid using the flash. I'll try to compensate by opening up the aperture as much as I can. Maybe I'll slow down the shutter speed to like 1/30th, and that mean I would have put hold it onto a very stable surface. Bring my tripod, for example. Now, I actually didn't bring the tripod, so I have to use some kind of a surface which I can just hold it steadily and then take the picture, right? So 1/30th, and of course I'm assuming that the object's not moving. Usually I'm taking like buildings and trees or something like that where everything's more static, so that's okay. Other than that, yeah, so ISO, I would, again, leave it up to 1600 ISO. I try not to change it too much. I don't go higher than that, even during a night scene, because it starts to get very noisy and it's hard to adjust after post. Now, you have software out there that can maybe, clear it up a bit, but, try to avoid that because it's not the same as having what you see is what you get image when you're taking photos. Okay, so, and again, yeah, this camera does not have a selfie LCD screen, so you can't flip it out, but it does have a very good LCD screen. You can bring the LCD screen down to 90 degrees, so to the camera, okay? So perpendicular to the camera, and that's good for, like, you're doing a low angle shot like this, right? You can see there, and you're taking photo like that. So that's really convenient, or even up like this, and I can see, let's say, anything that's higher than my head, I'm able to take picture if I'm looking at the screen downwards. So this is a good way for the LCD to be angled. Now, I can't flip it over to do selfies, which is okay with me because I didn't use it for a vlogging camera. I actually used my smartphone for that. But yeah, I was clicking away a lot. Like I literally, just taking picture one after another. And by the time I finished, I was there for about 3 days, right? Well, at least I took the train, the Sky Train they call it, and I was taking all these pictures. And end up, I was looking at my file. I was like, wow, 2,700 plus images that I took. Now that, it filled up. I think I brought 2 cards, 64 gig, and literally the first one was filled. The second one was almost filled, right? The reason for that is because it was set to RAW and JPEG like together, right? So RAW takes a lot of data, so that does use a lot of the storage capacity. So yeah, I want to preserve the image afterwards. That's why I had to take picture RAW and as well as JPEG. JPEG was easy for me because I just can upload it online or maybe adjust a little bit and upload on social media. But the RAW, I want to preserve it as a really good image. I want to keep that and maybe manipulate later on, and when I just have time to go through each of the frame or the image, and then maybe I decided to crop in or do something to the image that requires a little more adjustment. Okay, so yeah, that's what I did with this camera. I would say definitely one of my favorite go-to camera when I'm traveling now. I used to carry Sony 5000, but the feel for that camera is not as great as the Fujifilm X-T3. For some reason, the Fujifilm X-T3, when you're carrying it, you feel like you're, a photographer, a more serious one, at least the feel of it, right? And when you do take picture, you feel like you capture something beautiful. I'm not saying Sony a5000 cannot do that, but it's a little bit more mechanical. It's not as aesthetic looking or the feeling of it, but it does capture the image, and the image is pretty good as well because that's an APS-C camera, right? I didn't have a good lens for that. That's another problem, right? I don't have the a kit lens that's 1855 f2.824. The lens I had that comes with that a5000 was 1850, I believe, and it was f3.5 to 5.6, which is not that great for talking about aperture. This one is a pretty decent lens, and I think it's pretty sharp as well. So that's why I got this camera, because of the lens, okay, the combination. Now the battery is a little bit not as powerful as the a5000, but I did carry 2 batteries. I should have brought 3, of course, but that's okay. Like I said, I also brought the battery bank, so I would plug in that to my USB-C connection to the Fujifilm, and it will charge it while I'm not taking photos, and by that time this camera will be fully charged again. So that's how I was able to do it. So again, as a tip, make sure you have a lot of batteries. If you don't have more than 3, then bring your USB-C type battery bank so you can charge your Fujifilm X-T3 camera. Now if you want to do videos, I didn't use it for videos because I was counting on my smartphone. My smartphone has a good stabilization, so that's why I end up using that for my vlogging. And I actually hook up a wired mic to this, the lavalier mic, to my smartphone. There's nothing to see actually for the vlogging. I find it a bit boring, but yeah, I rather take pictures, focus on my camera, taking nice photos than doing vlogging. I'm not that kind of style of doing vlogging while taking photos. When I'm doing photos or photography, I just want to focus on doing that and not think about anything else. So I'll show you right now some of the images, because there's too many. That's like 2,700. I'll just pick the selected one. Hopefully you enjoy looking at it. Hopefully you also have a chance to go to Vancouver as well. Now on a nice sunny day and a nice weather, like in the 18s to 20s, Vancouver is a joy to be. But I'm not sure why people are so sad. Give me a comment below why Vancouver people look so sad even on a sunny day. When I was riding on the SkyTrain, I don't know, people always look depressed. Why? You have such a beautiful environment that God gave you. Why do you look so depressed? Anyway, I'll talk to you next time. I'll talk about this Mini 3 Pro that I brought with me, and I'll show you some of the images that I was able to capture. Beautiful image like the mountain, the ocean, so on and so on. And of course, the third part, which is the third week, I'll talk about the trip itself and how I was able to save money. $500 US, I was able to get everything needed: food, accommodation, local transportation, flight. Yeah, great deal. All right, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and give me a little heart of appreciation. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.